Hello, my name is Kieran Imunga and I'm an engineer here at Race Technology. Just wanted to do a quick video of how to install the Race Technology software and go over the basics. So this video is for a basic demonstration on how to install the Race Technology software, giving a demonstration of how to do basic lap by lap comparison in the analysis. The data I'll be using is car data with no video. I'll go through the software installation, explanation of the software suite, how to load a run file and add a track marker, go over the features of the analysis, detailed explanation of the variable manager, how to save the various important files, and an explanation of how the graphs are based on distance. So I have a completely blank installation, a computer here with no installation installed. So I'm going to go ahead here. I've downloaded the latest version off our website. In this case it's version 8.5.0353. So accept the license agreement. This is where you select the files to be stored. So if you do have a separate drive you want the files to be stored, this is where you change it. In this case we're going to be doing the racing software, but if it's an automotive testing application using our high-end kit, then it's this option. If you're using a video 4, this is for the video format. If you're in the USA it's NTSC, if you're out of the USA it's the PAL. So this is selecting the swap file. So this is a section of memory that's allocated to process all the data. So this is going to use up a large section of your hard drive. If you're loading in multiple cars, multiple races of data, then you want to go quite big. The default is 8 gigabytes. If you haven't got much memory available on the computer you can go a bit smaller, but this will limit how much data you can load into the analysis software. You can set an alternative location for this. For this demonstration I'm going to use the default size. So whilst that's installing I'm going to select some data to use as a demonstration. So I'm going to use some Thailand Super Series data, 2018 stages, Buriram qualifying, go with car 18 which is a Bentley. I've just copied those onto my desktop. So the software is finished installing. You can select this option to load the software suite directly, or you can use this option to read the release notes. For this demonstration I'll select the default. So now the software is installed, you can open the Race Technology software suite. So just going back to this, so now going through the software installation done, explanation of software suite. So this is our software suite. At the bottom you have the analysis, which is the main software, the live monitor for connecting to the equipment to view the data live, so this is generally used for setup, making sure everything works. The device explorer, so using our Dash 2 Pro where the memory is built in, you download over USB. This is the software to use, and if you need to use TeamViewer for some ports for support or connecting to a friend's computer. You can use it here. For configuration software, you can select the products up here to give you an idea. I'll just select like this how things should connect. If you want to configure a product, you can click here. And configure the product. So for this demonstration, just quickly over here, we have a full list of programs, some legacy product programs, and links to our knowledge base. So this one is the local help, so this is installed on the computer. So if you wanted to know the connections to a product, for example, this one is this one is online, so this is all our very latest information, and that's it. So this demonstration is going to be using the analysis. Oh wait, going back. Going back to this, so the software suite is done. So now the swap file is being created. So this is a one-time process. So it's allocating the section of memory that it's going to be used for processing the data. So now this is the first time you opened it up, you'll see this window. So it's just setting up the vehicle. So there's various options. If you're updating the software, then you can copy the settings from the previous installation. You can select no, I'll do it next time, or if you know what you're doing, you can select this one. So this one is to set the vehicle up. So this is setting the orientation of the unit. So inside our data loggers there's an accelerometer, and it's important to tell the software the orientation of the unit. So this is the accelerometer is measuring the braking and cornering g-forces. If it is the wrong way around, it'll think you're cornering, if you think you're going left when you're going right, or braking when you're accelerating. You can set the orientation up in the unit, and if you set it correctly in the unit, then you just leave it as the default. If it's not been set up in the unit, you can set the orientation here. You can enter the gear ratios for the software to automatically calculate the gear. You can set how many pulses per revolution for the RPM. So if you're going off an ignition signal and it's 2 pulses for every engine revolution, then you set it here. If you're unsure of these settings, you can just click next, and I'll show you later in the video how to edit them. So you can calculate power from the software, but the software needs to know the aerodynamic drag, the rolling resistance, and the weight of the vehicle. There is some simulation tools within the analysis. So if you want to see where the car is not at its maximum potential, you need to enter the values here. And finally, there's an option to share your data if you want to share it online. Okay. So now that's finished, this window appears onto how to load the software. Now I always recommend to tick this box and always load the default layout. So you can load a blank session, you can load it from a database or a previous session, but I always just recommend to tick this box and load the default layout. So now the software is open. it says no data available, and there's not much to click on. You can change things down here, but nothing happens. So there's no data currently loaded into the analysis software, and we need to load some data into the analysis. So I've just made the window a bit smaller. So these are the two files that I want to load into the analysis. So I can click on the load data icon and select desktop, and now I can see it's these two files. The way I recommend software is loaded is always just to use a Windows Explorer, a file explorer. So if you look on the desktop, you can see these files, and what you can do is select the files that you want to send and then just drag and drop them onto the title bar of the analysis software. So now the analysis is asking, do I want to load video to go with the data? But for this demonstration it is going to be data only. So I'm going to say don't ask me this again, and then select no. So now I've got two files loaded in. So this is the entire run now. So you can see one was 15 minutes and one was 13 minutes. So currently you're unable to click on anything, and the reason is no data is selected. So it is in this window that you need to select the data you want to analyze. So if this is looking at the 15-minute file, and this is looking at the 13-minute file. Blue for blue, red for red. Now if you select interactive mode up here, then it enables the chat map to work dynamically. So when a file is selected, it automatically shows you the data corresponding to that run file. So now you've got a full run file. The first thing to do is to break this up into laps. So I'm going to select the section where the point where the lap marker is, and on the keyboard press M for marker. This window will appear, and then you can just press enter. So this has added the marker here, and as you can see it's now converted the 15-minute file and 13-minute file into laps. So I'm able to click on one lap to another lap. So this is one run to a different run. So this can be one car to a different car, one day to a different day, or etc, etc. But that's how to add a lap marker and select some data. So now you can see the traces are beautifully overlaid on the graphs here. So how to load a run file and chat marker done. Go over each feature of the analysis. Okay. So up here is to load the data, which I showed earlier. This is for our databasing, so you can store all the data in our database, and then you're able to add some details like vehicle information, driver and location, and then order the data by each variable. So it's just how to a better way of storing the data, but it's not something I generally use. Print. So if you select a window and click print, it'll automatically come out the default printer set up to the computer. Run manager. So this window is reasonably useful. So it tells you the serial number of the data logger. So if you need to know the serial number, that's where it's stored. The firmware version used. the hardware type, and then how many samples are contained within the data and if there are any errors. You also set the ambient conditions here, so if you're measuring power or have an equation where it takes in the ambient pressure, then this is where you set it. So you can adjust it for all runs, not humidity. To adjust the temperature, humidity and pressure. Car and simulation options, so you can select different vehicle options. So if you've got different cars loaded in and you want to compare the gear ratios, the gears from one to another, this is where you need two vehicle types, which I'll cover how to save a vehicle file, and this is where you load it in, and video setup, which is we're not covering in this demonstration. So that's the run manager. The variable manager, now this is an important window which I'm going to cover in detail later, but this window is where you set your equations and file naming. So for example, down here I've got analog 1, if you can just see on this graph. So this is the analog input 1 on the data logger. Let's say I connected water temp to this channel. This channel, this name already exists, can't use that one. Say this is water temperature. You can see now down here where it said analog 1 now says water temperature. And also if you want to apply an equation to the channel, so by default this one is in volts, but if you need to enter a formula, then you can do so here. Next one is the track map, so that's this window. So if I just close that window and then open it, by default you really want to use the interactive mode. So if I just show you, if I take interactive mode off, it doesn't show me the laps by default. So it's best to keep it on just so it automatically shows you the data that you've selected. Some of the main features in here, so if you want to download the Google overlay, so you can download the Google image, and you've also got the street map version. You can color the map based on various variables, so typically time slip, so this shows you where time was lost against the fastest lap. So in this case no time was lost because I've got the fastest lap selected. If I select a slower lap, it shows me where the vehicle is going slower in comparison to the fastest lap. The next one is the XY graph. So this is a graph where you can set up in detail the data that you want to display. So under data you can select the Y and X axes and set manual limits and set the exact distance or time that you want to do. So you can do, if I just quickly show you the quick graph, so this is the XY graph, this is the quick graph. So the quick graph is always based on time or distance, and it has this interactive selector, where the XY graph just needs a bit more setup, and people generally use this one for more detailed viewing. So here I've got a graph of speed versus RPM, so you can just see the gears for each. So when he's doing 160 miles an hour. The RPM is 6,500. It puts you in this gear. So bar chart. So if you wanted to display a bar chart on a percentage basis or whatever, then this is the window to do it. So you can select various options and set it up here. Summary statistics. So this one, if you wanted to know like braking distances or acceleration time, so if you're looking for 100 to 130, you can see it's 4.34 seconds, and this is from the selected section. That's what that window does. Summary statistics, lap and sector times, which is this window. So this is the one you use to select the data. Summary statistics, which is this window over here. So you can set maximums of change in speed. So if you just wanted a new one, for example, I can select various statistic options. So range of gears. So you only use 3 gears. That's for that one. Values table. So here, if you wanted just a list of the channel values, you can select here specifically which ones you want to display. Example. Just 1 second. So the values table. So when I click on a data point, it shows me on the values table. Whether I click on the track map or the graph, it shows me the value at that particular point. The quick graph, which is this one at the bottom, which is one of the most used windows. So you can see you've got all various channels here, and you can just quickly select between them, and it displays the data. In this quick graph under options, you've got various options to display the data. So typically you just display the values at the top of the graph. You can have it black. You can plot it against time and not distance, which I'll cover later in the video, and also set the mins and maxes of the graph using the variable manager, which I'll come to later. Okay, a video window. So if you have got video loaded in, you click here, it will show you the frames of the video side by side. Where's that one gone? So you can have some dials if you prefer to look at a dial. And play options. So you can click play, this particularly useful if you have the video and you want to just play them side by side. This is the window for that. And finally, the help file. So if there is something that you wanted to check, this is where to do it. So that's the main icons. Up here you've got file, so you can export the data, set default paths. Under data here, edit default vehicle options. So if the orientation is wrong, I'll just cover this one quickly now. So if I set the orientation incorrectly and reprocess the data, so now here, look, above this line, this is longitude and acceleration. Above this line is accelerating and below it is braking. So here you can see in the braking zone it thinks it's accelerating. So what it actually does, let me just switch these off, is it messes up the track map. So it makes a jump because it doesn't understand how the vehicle slowed down, and you can see now all the track map, it all looks messy and all the speeds don't perfectly align. So this is a really important option to get right. So I'm going back to here, edit default vehicle options, and selecting back, which is the correct option. So now you can see a nice clean track map, and the speeds are now perfectly aligned. Results. So this is generally these icons here. Window. So actually this isn't the only window. You can have up to 20 windows. So if I just select another window, you can now see it switches to a different window. So you can normally have a general one, and in this case you've got simulation, comparative, grip and power, video, standing start, and then help. So go back to the general window. Okay. Okay, so that's all the general options. Now finally the variable manager. So I wanted to just talk about this one more in detail, because this is quite an important setup that needs to be done, and the file created is something that you want to save. So if you wanted to move your files to a different computer, this is going to be one of the files that you need and set up. So for example, so first of all, in here if I select show only variables with data and commonly used derived variables, so this particular set of data has quite a lot of channels coming from the CAN bus, but the first thing you'll notice is that they've all got our default names, so I don't actually know what these channels are. So down here if I select fuel injection 5 pulse width, which is going to be this bottom one, which looks like brake pressure because here in the braking zone I can see it, but I want this to be the correct name. Now this is a part of the setup process where if you've created your own configuration, you'll know what these channels are and you can rename them. If it's one from one of our ECU adapters, you want to go to our help file, ECU interface, ECU type. So let's say you've got a I guess it doesn't matter, a DTA. Let me pick a different one, Motec. So the Motec has quite a lot of channels, so try and find a good example here. Okay, here's a good example. So speed 1, which would be one of the wheel speed sensors, is going to auxiliary 26, which has got a default name of auxiliary 1. So in this case, you'd want to rename auxiliary 1, which isn't used in this case, as wheel speed. Now, for this data set, I've saved the variable information. So once you've created this variable file, up here under File Advanced Options, you can save variable information. So if I go back to this directory and navigate to the variable file for this championship, I can drag and drop it again onto the title bar at the top here. So it's just giving me a warning. Are you sure you want to replace the variable information? Yes. So now you can see it was brake pressure down here. I've got brake pressure right left. You've got wheel speeds, a whole good set of data now. So that's just a good introduction to the variable manager. In fact, I'll just cover one other thing. So in here, if we select a channel like boost pressure, so if I I'll just switch some of these channels off. In fact, RPM, I use RPM, it's better. So the RPM data here, so RPM is stored under external inputs. Now you can apply various filtering to the channel. So if you wanted to remove a lot of the noise, here it's only got 0.02 of a second. Thank you very much. Filter on. If you change this to 0.5 seconds, you can see the RPM becomes much smoother. So if you need to apply some filtering, this is where you do it. So you've got smoothed over time, and you've got a maximum rate of change, and you've also got some Butterworth filter if you wanted some more advanced filtering. Just to go back to that, so variable manager, external inputs, RPM, smooth over time, 0.1. Okay. So my next topic is how to save the various important files. Now the layout of the analysis will change from track to track, but generally I like to have this over here. Basically I like this graph nice and big. I keep the G-forces on there and speed, and RPM. It's a nice general setup. This window, go here, track map, in fact we'll make that one bigger. Okay, so that once you're happy with your layout and you've decided on it, up here under File, Advanced Load Saves, you can save as the current default layout. So now when you open up the software, this is how the software will appear. And if you want to just save a copy of the layout to send to a friend or for a particular application, under File, Advanced Load Save, Save Screen Layout. So this will create a layout file, which to show you. So now under Window, if I close all windows, so there's no windows open, this is the file that I just created. I can drag and drop it onto the title bar to load all the windows. So the next one you want to save is the lap marker file. So if you save the marker files, each time you load them in, you'll have a better comparison of the lap time. If you move the lap marker to a different location, the lap times will vary slightly. So here I've only got one lap marker shown. I just wanted to just show you actually how to break it up further. So I added this marker by pressing M and enter. I'll just cover that again. So under data here, clear all track markers. So that's removed all the track markers. So I'm going to press again M for marker and enter. It's breaking that up into laps, and from there, if I want to break it up into sectors, I press M and enter again. So you can see now I've got a single sector. So generally you just want to break it up into a few sectors. So now you have a theoretical fastest lap, which is adding together all these fastest sectors, and a continuous fastest lap, which is starting the fastest lap from any point on the track. So it might not necessarily be the starting line. He got clear track halfway round and was able to put his fastest lap, but this continuous time is an achieved lap time, just not necessarily at the starting point. And this theoretical time is might be unachievable due to going fast in one sector, but it messes up the next sector, meaning it's not possible to achieve a full lap using those sectors. So to save this marker file, so File, Advanced Load Saves, Save Markers Sectors. So I'm going to call this one Boyram and save it onto my desktop. So just under here, data, clear all track markers. In fact, I'll just do data clear everything. So now I've got the layout but no data loaded in. Going back to my desktop file, I can drag and drop the data in. So this is just again generally how I recommend to load the data, and then once the data is loaded in, you can go back to that window and select the .lap file and drag and drop that into the analysis too. So this is just a quick way to quickly load in the data and do some quick analysis. Okay. So the layout file and the variable file are two files that you want to create and save. So if you want to move the data to a different computer, they're the two main files that you'll need. Okay, so finally, the final topic, explanation of how the graphs are based on distance. So the race technology products have a built-in accelerometer that gives 100 Hz acceleration data, and we have the GPS that we use is a high accuracy GPS, but combining them both together we get a high accuracy speed and position data at 100 Hz. Now if I, for example, select a fast lap and a slow lap, so here I've got a 1:33 and a 1:43, and I base the graphs on time and not distance, try and find a better example. In fact, now I'll go back to that example. So because it's based on time, when the graphs aren't perfectly aligned because one vehicle is going faster than the other. So here you can see there's a gap between the two vehicles, so that the alignment isn't perfect. But if you do it based on distance, even though the time was a lot slower, when I click on a graph you can see that they're perfectly aligned. Now this is why it's important to get the best GPS data possible and ensure that the correct orientation of the unit is set in the software and the unit is mounted correctly in the car. Getting the accurate speed data, so the way we get distance is to integrate the speed data, and this will give you the better aligned graphs. So it's really important to ensure that you get the best data possible. And it's one of the really good features of the race technology software is that our distance calculation is really good because we're using the accelerometer data that doesn't have inaccuracies like GPS does, but it has a lot of drift where the GPS doesn't. So combining them both, you get a very, very accurate speed data, and it's this speed data that really enables you to do some decent analysis by basing the graphs on distance and really understanding where the time was lost and gained from one lap to another. Okay, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration. Thank you for watching.